What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be doing a mock the mock on CBS's brand new mock draft. Josh Edwards is somebody who I've talked about plenty of times, so we're going back again. Starting in a couple weeks, maybe in one or two, we'll be continuing these mock drafts for a second round, so stay tuned for mock the mock then what, because that's my special spin on the series. Want to make sure I have pretty much all my evals done by that point, so that we can have even more fun. Let's get into the content. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, join the community because I make content almost every single day. Let's get right into this. So, starting out with the number one overall pick, I see that there is a picture of that beloved Duke quarterback that we'll talk about, hopefully, probably sometime in this episode, Riley Leonard. But number one, we have the Cardinals. I assume this is going to be the draft odds or the Super Bowl odds, but Caesars Sportsbook Super Bowl odds. There you go. So for me, I think Caleb Williams is the best prospect in the class. Obviously, you guys see it right here. I don't really need to explain my board too much, but I think that if the Cardinals are here, they're going to be shipping it out. Too much dead money, too much drama, too many unanswered questions with the front office. I think Caleb will have a contingency on coming out based on who will have that number one overall selection. So I'm curious. Honestly, I don't know if the Texans are going to be there, but it seems like the Cardinals or the Texans are that dream number one, or the most likely to be that number one spot. So we'll see how that develops. But Kyler Murray is going to be coming back during the season. I don't know if they end up having that number one overall selection, but Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., even if you don't want Caleb, are still two very, very, very good options. And assuming you get Caleb, you could ship Caleb away if you want to. So again, until they sign their contract, I don't really know what the trading deals are like, but I know that Lynn Bowden got traded. I remember that there was a trade with him and some other player before they even really signed their contracts before the season. So there are preseason trades that do happen between draft prospects, and could be something like that. Then you got Drake May to the Bears. There's just no way that they'd go after another UNC quarterback. I know you don't scout the helmet, but to be 100% fair, Drake May has not answered a ton of the questions that he had in terms of his play last year. Continues to be talented in the areas where he was talented in. Awesome. Good to know that you have arm talent. That secures that you're an NFL quarterback if you have those high upside plays. Now, the question is, are you going to be an upside NFL quarterback? That requires consistency. You make 3 beautiful throws a game. Wonderful. What happens when you throw 3 pretty poor passes a game? In college, you might be able to get away with that. Even versus a pretty solid team like Appalachian State, you may get away with that, but you're not going to get away with that in the NFL unless you have George Kittle swatting the pass down. They don't have anything like that. So I got to admit, I am one of those who are far more critical on Drake May than a lot of people. Just got to call it out as it is. But he's still a good quarterback for me. Again, I have him listed right here as my number 25 overall player. I don't list quarterbacks in my top 32 unless I believe they can be legitimate starters. But I'm just pumping the brakes on people saying he deserves to be the number one overall pick, because I'm seeing guys like Bo Nix make a lot of these plays that Drake May is making. To be fair, now Bo Nix is almost a consensus QB3. But I'm seeing a lot of these plays made by certain quarterbacks where people would be jaw dropped if just the name was changed to Drake May. So there's a lot of scouting of the name that people like to do rather than just the player. And I highly doubt that the Bears would go after another UNC quarterback at this point. I'd rather try out Justin Fields or trade out and try out another QB. Olu Fashanu is next. So really, I know the quarterback position is one that I like to target, primarily moving up for Caleb Williams. That's just what I've been doing recently, because I think that's the smart thing to do for both franchises. But, quarterback is a position I would target. If Drake May is the quarterback that you have on the board, then I would probably try to address maybe edge rusher, even twice, honestly. But, edge rusher, maybe a tackle spot. I think that going QB in a tackle, I think you need to have one of those 2 picks be an edge rusher. It's not a very deep edge class. You could talk about Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau doing a great job this year. Happy for them. They've done it against Western Kentucky, right? And Youngstown State. Please, let's pump the brakes. Let's stop the BS. Indiana as well. Like, those schools are not pumping out NFL offensive linemen. They should perform well against those teams. They are better players than the offensive linemen that they are facing. So let's just pipe down the love for players that are performing well against teams that they should be performing well against. Now, I'm not saying that it discounts their play. I'm saying when people are saying, oh, let's raise them up the list, they're doing well. Halt. They should be. They really should be. If they aren't, like, playing well against poor teams gives you a reason not to drop somebody, not to raise them. So gotta just call that out there. But I think edge rusher is a position that really does need to be addressed on the Bears, and was not in this mock draft. I do think OT and QB are probably two of the positions that they could address. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think it's a necessity to build up that defense a little bit more. But Olu Fashanu is incredible, one of the best athletes I've ever seen at the tackle position, and I really don't have an issue with how of the Bears drafting him. I know Braxton Jones hasn't been bad at all. I'm pretty sure, is he on IR? Pretty sure he's on IR right now. But to be fair, Braxton Jones, they still need interior offensive line help too. Braxton Jones can get inside. I think Olu Fashanu, I don't know many people would disagree with this, is a significantly better prospect than Braxton, who went in the 5th round. Like, we all know Olu is better. So it doesn't mean, again, players that go in the 5th round can end up being great. But coming out of college, it's pretty obvious Olu's significantly better. Braxton just ended up working out, which is great. But again, you still need help on the interior. Braxton could be one of those guys who's a guard transfer who actually, in case Olu gets injured, ends up being a very, very valuable swing offensive lineman. Jared Verse is next, so honestly, I'd be willing to swap these two picks, but the Colts do need pass rush help. I think in a pretty, again, edge rusher, there's, in my opinion, a solidified top 3. To be fair, Braylon Trice hasn't necessarily proven against talented teams that they're going to perform up to where I have them at the moment, but it's the start of the season. Again, just like I'm not criticizing or raising up guys who are doing well, I'm not going to be overly critical of guys who are having a slower start, because really it's how you finish, not how you start. Regardless, I do think edge rusher's position they should target. I think corner is more valuable, but that's okay. Again, it's still one of the top positions to target. Jared Verse is an amazing player. Just pops off every time I watch him. Malik Neighbors is next. I'm a lot lower on Malik Neighbors than a lot of people, but I do think in a certain system fit, he works well. As an overall receiver, I think he lacks the route running ability that a lot of receivers tend to honestly kind of lack in the NFL that don't end up being true ones. I don't think Malik Neighbors is a true one, but in a system that uses him properly, he can perform like a number 1. He has great speed. He's great after the catch. That's wonderful. But again, the route running, not up to par. I personally think that he is a little bit over redundant in terms of the deep threat ability with Jalen Hyatt. I like the after the catch ability, but I'd go for someone who's a little bit more nifty with routes. I'm not going to be mad at this pick if they end up choosing Malik Neighbors at 6. Obviously, I'm going to say it's extremely overvalued in a very deep receiver class, but looking at it as the pick itself with Malik Neighbors to New York, he does have the good size that you are looking for to complement other receivers. I just want someone who could get open who's also an X. So, maybe if Malik Neighbors were 6'2" at 200, that's like, okay, I can deal with it. But he doesn't have the exact X build that I'm looking for. At number 6, not really a big fan of it. Raiders going J.J. McCarthy through 3 picks versus Bowling Green. Not necessarily a big fan of that. Also, just barely over 200 pounds. Looks like it too. I like J.J. McCarthy quite a bit. Again, we're talking about this as a top 10 pick. He's going over quarterbacks like Bo Nix, Joe Milton, Shadur Sanders, which I don't know if Shadur's going to be featured in this. His Daddy Prime, said he's probably not going to come out because he doesn't want to be second to somebody. And I get that motivation from Prime. At the same time, I looked at the reaction from Shadur. It does kind of feel like he's like, come on, Dad, like, don't make the decision for me. But, it's Prime. If he says something, most likely it's going to be the case. Regardless, there's still Michael Penix in that situation as well in the conversation. I don't think the Raiders' primary position of need will be quarterback with Aiden O'Connell performing well. I don't think that you should discount the value of a quarterback, but taking one top 10 when you could, for example, take a top tier corner at this spot like Kool-Aid McKinstry or you can get, I mean, hell, you could go after Brock Bowers. I think that would be a little bit redundant, but you could end up going after Joe Alt to end up increasing the strength of the offensive line. I personally would go after Kool-Aid McKinstry here, but I also would try to move back, and then I know there's no trades in this, but move back and get someone like Drazon Newton. Those would be my top two guys. And then Joe Alt, it's just because the value is so good, not because I think they need it as badly. It's just, again, you can't find that many good tackles in the NFL. Brock Bowers is next. I think it's an excellent addition. Personally, I would be looking to target Joe Alt at this spot. Just the tackles are getting older. Sam is not necessarily the biggest guy in the world. He's 6 feet tall. I'd want him to have enough time, be able to trust his blind side more than have another elite weapon, because they have plenty of it. At a certain point, you're going to be a little over redundant, and there's going to be too many cooks in the kitchen. Can't feed them all. So next, you got Marius Mims. I love the fact that Marius is getting some love here. He's playing right tackle, so I wanted to wait a couple games to see if they're going to start flexing him right and left, because even Anton Harrison last year started out at right tackle and then moved back to left. And Marius Mims is a great player. I'm a big fan of him. Don't really have anything critical to say. He is, where is he on my board? Number 15. So that's fine. Now, if you don't want to address the right tackle spot and want to go left tackle, obviously then you're going to be leaning towards Joe Alt. But Marius Mims, apart from Taliese Fuaga, who I know I'm significantly higher on than most people, is going to be the best right tackle in the class. So this does have Shedeur Sanders in it. I think if he does come out, I think pick 10 is not insane for him. Now, he will only have 1 year of legitimate D1 production. Like, I know HBCUs, like, it's a sensitive topic, but at the same time, you just got to call it as it is. Teams don't necessarily see that as translatable tape. This is translatable tape. He's done a phenomenal job. But again, 1 year translatable tape does sometimes give teams pause. He could end up being a top 32 pick. Or if he ends up continuing to produce, he could be a top 10 pick. I don't think this would be a bad selection if he ends up coming out. I love the idea of trading back a Michael Penix if Penix stays healthy, just because Penix looks good in purple, and he fits the system very well. Shedeur doesn't use his legs as much as maybe some people will think with the Sanders last name, and I think he'd actually work pretty well in Minnesota. So I'm a fan of that pick. Kool-Aid McKinstry is next. I mean, again, that's something that you could debate right here with so many QBs, and they have a top 10 pick, so they'll have pick 42. You could end up trading back into the end of the first for another talented QB. But sometimes if you really want to address that QB spot, you don't play around with value there. You just get the best guy. So I get that. But Kool-Aid McKinstry for the Broncos is ridiculous. I kind of feel like Surtain is a very good comp for him. So it's an obvious system fit. And, Alabama corners, they're really damn good. J.C. Latham is next. I don't know what's up with the Joe Alt hate, but, to be fair, Joe Alt's right there. Again, he is a right tackle. So, I pretty much would want him to go, and, I want Tristan Wirfs to be a right tackle. I don't like the fact that he's a left tackle. I get the value of a blindside tackle is significantly higher than a right tackle, but it still bothers me a little bit. J.C. Latham, he's been performing better. I will admit that. Still think he needs to be more assertive and more powerful. But, when you have a guy like Tristan Wirfs, that could certainly push you in the right direction. Joe Alt is next. So, I'm intrigued to see. I think Joe Alt's an amazing pick. Like, let's get past that. I'm intrigued to see where he's going to go because, a lot of people, including myself, think that he is a top 10 prospect in the class. And at left tackle, it's a very valuable position. So he should probably even be higher. It's weird, but still, very good player. You got Dallas Turner next. I really like Dallas Turner. Again, the Titans are very tough to draft for because of the fact that, honestly, they don't have that bad of a team. They're very much Moneyball in the aspect that I don't feel like they have legitimate major holes. Like left tackle, you got Andre Dillard. Not necessarily great. So if you have someone like Joe Alt on the board, absolutely you can upgrade. But you're not necessarily excited to take somebody maybe in round 2 or 3 to compete at that position because it might be over redundant. They might not be as good as Andre Dillard. So you do have those issues for sure. I think that Dallas Turner coming in, especially with his coverage ability, could actually work really well. It's a guy who I like for the Titans. I just don't really have the balls to take Dallas Turner for the Titans this early. But, he's my number 5 player. I dig it. Nate Wiggins is next. I don't think the Jets need another corner. I think they need an offensive tackle. So my next guy available, obviously Taliesin. I'm a big fan of Taliesin, but you got Kingsley Suamataia, who I'm just going to edit here live with you guys. He is now an offensive tackle because he's been playing left tackle this year. Let up 4 pressures so far, but, again, brand new position. It is against worse teams, so I am concerned about that. But at the same time, I personally think that, he'll end up being all right. I'd prefer him at right tackle, though. I don't get it. I know left tackle is more valuable, but, when something's working right, just like Evan Neal being taken to be a right tackle, I was a big fan of it because of the potential, but, people just think it's an instant, seamless transition, and some guys just really work well on one side. I'm worried Kingsley and Evan Neal are both that way. So, a bit of concerning there. Cameron Kinchins, I'm so excited to watch his All-22. The normal game tape, he pops off like a freaking monster. And I'm just going to be completely honest. The All-22 has been absolute crap lately. Like, the limited tape on safeties is ridiculous. Hence why I've been trying to delay it as much as possible. Ended up starting watching the safeties. There's not even Cameron Kinchins tape on the guy who I pay money to, which is irritating. And they don't even have James Williams, so it's not like I can watch either of them. Now, you could watch like Tyreek Stevenson and then, pray to God that you find the right number when the camera quality is crap. But, sometimes I just want to know who I'm watching. And very, very frustrating on that. But Cameron Kinchins pops off like a mofo. This is a great pick. I'd prefer going after Cooper DeJean just because he's a monster and can be an instant impact on special teams as well. But can't go wrong. Kingsley, so here we go. He is now a left tackle. So you're going to have to kick him back to right, but he's shown success at that right tackle spot. I would be open to it, not against it. Obviously, I'd take him myself, but that was before I really realized that, they're going to keep him at left tackle. A lot of times, at the start of the year, you test out guys and see if they work. I don't think he's going to end up moving back to right tackle. So you're going to basically take a guy and have to sit him under Chukwuma Okorafor again. And it really pisses me off how much the Steelers have been sitting their rookies until like a couple of games in. So glad that we're seeing Keanu Benton pop off. Nick Herbig popping off. Is it Nick? It is Nick. I know we have both, but doesn't matter. Joey Porter Jr. is starting to pop off. So it's good that we're starting to play him, but for the love of God, we didn't start him for some reason. Doesn't make sense, but that's okay. But Kingsley is a guy where, I don't know if I want a guy who's been playing left for an entire year to move right back to right tackle. It does concern me, but, still, offensive line is never going to be a position I'd fully criticize. Oh, I'm not a fan of this pick. Riley Leonard, let's talk about him. So Riley has had only like 500 yards passing on the season, which I don't know why no one's bringing that up. He's been a really good runner of the ball. Does not have a cannon of an arm. I just feel like a lot of guys like to throw in a Duke QB who's been performing well. He's a good QB. He's my QB9. I'm not shaming him as a talent, but a first-round talent because he has limited arm strength. That's my big issue. He does not have a lot of zip on the ball. And the fact that he's used in the Duke offense as a hybrid runner and passer does show that they understand his limitations. So definitely a big question mark right there. I know a lot of people love him though, so not going to fully disagree with the fact that he could go first round, but again, y'all know I'm very opinionated. Falcons going to Emeka Egbuka, I just feel bad. I don't trust how the receivers in Atlanta perform, and I really want Emeka to go to an opportunity that he'll end up thriving in. Jerzon Newton will be going much earlier than this, but if he's here, it's a great pick. I think I've had Jerzon here quite a few times, but it's because I'm trying to find a spot for him earlier on. Really good pick, really good value. You got JT Tuimalau, so they're going after another defensive lineman within the first 2 rounds. I get it, but at the same time, well, I can't use logic with the Saints. To be fair, they did some pretty solid moves this past draft, but, again, JT's been performing well against crap teams. I'm excited to be proven wrong when they play someone legitimate. So if he goes up against Joe Alt and performs well, you absolutely have my permission to come at me, and just absolutely eviscerate my takes before. 100%, and I'll own up to it. but I just want to see it against talent that he'll be going up against in the NFL. There you go. Leatu Latu, I don't think edge is the primary need for the Texans. I go usually after one of my top guys in Dallas Turner at the spot because of the fact that he has that combination with Will Anderson. I don't think edge is the primary need for this team. You could look at safety here because it's a good safety class. You could even I would even technically look at corner. Offensive line is just injuries has been the issue. Wide receiver one, there's still guys like Keon Coleman on the board. I think that'd be a really, really good fit. So there's a lot better moves. I don't think this is a bad move, but I just personally get really scared when a player has to medically retire. Again, that didn't prove Jalen Phillips is a bad pick, but it does concern me quite a bit. At the same time, he does not convert speed to power very well. Apart from that, he has crazy length, really good athlete, very unique player, knows how to get off blocks, but I just don't see the power. And I'm not so I guess I have a type for guys who can, push an offensive lineman back. At 265, I'd hope that he'd do it better. You got Mason Smith here for the Jaguars. I like Mason Smith. I haven't watched enough of him to give you an honest opinion. There's not enough tape so far this year for me to see enough consistency and see him progress after that ACL tear in order to give you an honest opinion. So that's a TBD, but I don't think D-line's a bad move for the Jaguars. I'd prefer guard or wide receiver, especially with Keon Coleman on the board. You got Kalen King here, which is an amazing pick for the Lions. I have him as my number 11. Well, to be fair, these guys are all within a pretty tight range. So he's right there with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think that'd be a great move for the team. So pick number 25, Zach Zinter. I think interior offensive line is perfectly fine for the Bengals. Continue protecting Joe. I prefer maybe another weapon here. You could go Keon Coleman, but now you're getting a little redundant with a T. Higgins build. But, sometimes BPA works a lot better than just doing what fits your needs the best. I think Zach Zinter's a fine pick. He's a good player. I worry about his arm length, but I don't think that's stopped the Bengals from doing anything. Keon Coleman would be a ridiculously awesome pick to see him paired up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'd be a little bit concerned about his usage, but still a very fun player, especially without, I know, again, Taliesin is my guy, but I know that he's not many people's, if any. And so I'm not going to be like, oh, you should have taken him here. Again, I'm realistic. I understand that, the public perception, and especially the perception of whoever's writing this, matters a lot more in this context than mine. You got Cooper DeJean here for the Ravens. I just don't like him as a corner. I just don't. He's really, really shifty. He's a great athlete. I don't think he changes directions in sharp cuts very well, which is, kind of key as a corner. I think as a receiver, he'd be fine, but he's best as a safety, not a corner, because of the fact that you need to have that ability to make these really sharp cuts. And I think the fact they put him as a slot corner for a lot of reps is indicative of that. And he's just so talented and has so much potential as a safety that it irritates me to see him as a corner. And this team would not use him as a safety, obviously, with such a good safety core. But, it'd be intriguing to see. Jordan Morgan for the Cowboys doesn't really make sense to me. Tore his ACL last year at the end of the year too. And then, he's a good player. I'm not trying to shit on him as a player, but you have Tyler Smith as the heir apparent to the left tackle. I'd prefer to let Tyler Smith be the left tackle. He performed well there. You have someone who's really solid here in Graham Barton, who could work as a great guard, even a center too. I personally don't get that, but if it ends up being this way, if they were like, we think Tyler's going to be our future at the guard spot, I don't think left tackle is a bad idea. But again, why would you draft a guard in the first round that, was a tackle drafted as a tackle? Then you got Leonard Taylor here for the Bills. Not like they need extra talent, but it is BPA. Not going to shame them for going BPA. You got Chop Robinson here for the Eagles. I just want to get somebody who's around 260, 265. Josh Sweat's been on a tear lately. He's probably going to get another contract. I think they'll still go after an edge rusher in the first because they're known to have a very healthy rotation. But Derek Barnett, Brandon Graham, going to be gone. Fair. So he's going to pretty much have Josh Sweat to compete with. I think they like to go over 265. So I'd prefer to go after someone like Braylon Trice, who I have up here. But I don't think it's a bad pick. Chop's been doing a much better job this year at being consistent. Now, I'm going to dive into the tape a couple more weeks in to see who he is mid-season form. But at the same time, again, good for him. McKinley Jackson is next. He had a pretty rough game versus the Miami Hurricanes. And like a lot of people like Javion Cohen, I think that Javion has quite a few issues that he needs to work through, but I do see why you can love him. McKinley only had one pressure on the interior in that game. That's not good because I think his ability to get off blocks, he feels very similar to Kalijah Cansey at 320 pounds. He didn't show it, and you should be far more productive as a pass rusher if you're going to earn that title. And if you're on the Chiefs, you need to be a pressure machine because that is what Chris Jones is. He's one of the most dominant pass rushers in the game. McKinley Jackson should be that. I'm not saying he won't be that. I'm saying that there are some early indications that maybe his play last year isn't as translatable as I was hoping for. But defensive interior is a great pick. If McKinley Jackson gets back to 2022 season form, since I always talk about 2024 draft, we're thinking in normal years now, in 2022 form, then we can start talking about this pick. Then we got the Niners projected to win the Super Bowl. That's a touchy subject, but Xavier Worthy is the pick. I feel like you're kind of putting Xavier in a role that Danny Gray is supposed to be in. Brock Purdy is someone who has limited arm strength. We all see it. Like it's not a shame at all. Like I had Brock Purdy as my number 6 quarterback that year. Proud to say it. It was one of the guys that I hit on. But we're not seeing Danny Gray pop off. Danny Gray is the exact player Xavier Worthy is. I think possibly even better. I know I'm much lower on Xavier Worthy than some people, but there's just no reason to get Xavier Worthy. You're pretty much giving the middle finger to Danny Gray, who is an amazing 4-3 deep threat, who just has drop issues. He's already popped off. It's not like Danny Gray hasn't done anything in preseason games or in the NFL. Like he's done. He's proven that he has that potential. It doesn't make sense at all for me to go after this route. I think if you go offensive line, it's a very smart way. You go after a corner, a safety to Sean Gibson, not going to be there forever. Like this is a good safety class. That's where you should go. Kalen Bullock would be a great addition at this point. West Coast kid, USC. And then you have him go and replace Deshaun Gibson. And he's a ball hawk too. It doesn't really make sense with me for this pick. But that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side.